morning, everybody. Glad to be back this first Saturday morning in August. My name is Ed Samuel. I'm a career coach with a firm called Sam Nova. We're based in Kennett Square, PA, and serve clients in the greater Philadelphia area and across the U.S. This morning, we're going to go take another look at networking and why it's not only critical in landing a job, but how networking can optimize and safeguard your entire career. Joining us this morning is a good friend, Greg Plum, who has broad background in technology, IT, staffing, sales and marketing, and most importantly, networking. Greg has lobbied on Capitol Hill to support the IT industry. He served as a CompTIA faculty member, which is tied to a training program for people who want a career in IT. And he started 3 technology channel sales programs from scratch. Greg also has delivered a TEDx talk on cloud technology and is frequently published in technology industry publications and is a 3-time contributing author to the Amazon #1 bestseller, The Better Business Book Series. Currently, Greg heads up sales and marketing for Brandywine Technology, a technical staffing firm located here in Wilmington, Delaware. So welcome to the program, Greg.
Thanks, Ed. Good to be here.
Before we get too much into networking and our topics, can you give us a glimpse about your career and how you ended up in your role today?
I can. Thanks for asking. So it's actually very much unplanned. It's not how I plan things to work out. It's evolved into quite a circuitous path to get me to this point. Actually started out with a degree, believe it or not, in geophysics at the University of Delaware, and everybody always chuckles with that. It's interesting because I was actually in a class of 1, so I was top of my class, and I was also in the bottom of my class. But it was a lot of fun because it allowed me to actually, and it really set the path for my career because it allowed me to create a curriculum almost from scratch, within certain parameters, but allowed me to exercise some freedom. And I was able to do so with the, with the blessing of the university and with my advisor. And really, my career has pretty much taken that same type of path since then. Now, after that, I went right from geophysics into banking because that's a logical choice, right? That's a logical step. Banking, I just happened to end up with, there was a very, very large, successful bank in our backyard at the University of Delaware. It was MBNA America Bank. They really did a very good job of cultivating the students from the university. And I got into a program called the Management Development Program, really gave me the opportunity to get exposure to the entire bank. And I realized at that point, corporate was a little bit more my direction, at least I thought at that time. So that really kicked off a 12-year career in banking. And then after that, I switched gears and got into technology, which really was kind of on a bit of a whim. I said I'd give it 6 months. I'd give it a shot. If it didn't work out, I would go right back to banking. But that 6-month assignment actually turned into a 12-year run and got me acclimated to the world of technology. So no complaints there. So the interesting thing why networking, Ed, is so important to me, and it's been so critical for my career, the first 24 years of my career, I was with 3 companies. The last 8 years of my career, I've been with 6. So it just gives you an idea of how times have changed and the need to be able to really network effectively has become that much more critical. Interestingly, of all of those jobs, only 1 has come from a job board, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I guess it's just what a job board is all about. And I even backdoored that using LinkedIn, which we're going to talk about as one of my absolute favorite tools. I used LinkedIn to get that job. Even though I came in through a job board, I really kind of backdoored it to get that one. So networking has been very good to me.
Great. Greg, networking is such a big area to cover. Let's start with, what people need to do who are unemployed and how should they go about building a network?
Well, if they're unemployed, they really are not unemployed. They are self-employed. And their job as a self-employed person at that point is promoting themselves. Their audience, their target audience is former bosses, coworkers, those that worked for them. Think of all the people that they've worked with through the years. And I don't mean within the last 1 or 2 years. They could go back. You could go back decades. Think about those successful relationships that you had. Those were people that valued your input and vice versa. Those are the ones you actually really want to cultivate. It's going to take discipline. You need to do it just like with any other job. You need to do it every single day. And as you know, Ed, when you're self-employed, you have to find at every minute of every day the highest and best use of your time. And that is going to be the challenge of somebody who is quote unquote unemployed as they tackle their, the challenge of finding their next challenge.
Greg, we talked, I mentioned earlier, you're a contributor to the Better Business Book volume. And it's one of the articles that you had contributed to is called Your Rearview Mirror. Now, does this reflect your philosophy on the role of networking in someone's career?
It does. The whole concept of the rear view mirror to me was, when you're driving, you have to see what's behind you. What's going to help you see your way forward is not just looking ahead, but leverage where you've been, leverage the connections that you've had in the past. Those are the ones, if you focus on people that know you, those are the ones you don't have to convince of your value. If you're going out to strangers, you are spending every single moment convincing them of why you're good, of why you're worth the effort. Indeed, as you probably know, Indeed.com, you'll hear their commercials everywhere. They tout over, in some months, they have over 200,000 unique visitors a month. Now, that's great from a marketing perspective, but how in the world is somebody supposed to stand out in a sea of 200,000 unique visitors? To me, that's the challenge. LinkedIn, which we will talk about a little bit more, I love this tool. It's even the free version is a wonderful tool, especially when you're navigating a career change. A couple weeks ago, I got an invite to apply for a job, a VP of marketing role, and I thought I just clicked on it just for giggles, just to see what was that particular opportunity. Turned out by the time I had gotten that email, it came right in that morning when I opened it, they had already had 191 applicants. So you can see if I was looking for a position, easily I would have been elated and then deflated just like that. So, the goal here, the moral of the story is really stop trying to convince strangers of your worth. Focus on your network and find out and just ask for the favor. Tell them what you want. People love to help.
Greg, if you're working and you're fully employed, how does networking change then?
Well, the difference there is networking is no longer your full-time job. So the challenge is really to stop. And that is the kiss of death. Just because you no longer need a position, you should not stop building your own personal brand because you just don't know what the future holds. And the beauty of a tool like LinkedIn is you own that network. As you build that network, you own it. Your employer does not. It goes with you, it stays with you, and you can use that as your marketable base. You can use it for a search if you're traveling across the country and you want to find people you're connected to. Many, many ways you can use it. Now, but since it's not your job, you need to figure out, well, when can you do this? It's really not kosher to be doing this during your workday. It really isn't. So, you could do it early in the morning. You could do it in your lunch break or in the evening. My suggestion is early in the day for a couple of reasons. Number one, that's when you're most fresh. We're all most fresh in the morning when we're getting ready to start the day. But beyond that, what you'll find is the adrenaline rush. When you reach out to people that know you and they respond, there is an adrenaline rush, even for introverts. They get a kick out of this. Everyone gets a kick out of hearing from somebody and connecting with somebody from the past. Use that. It's going to make your day. It's going to make their day and it's going to make your day. So I suggest doing that in the morning.
If you think about all the networking that you've seen over the years and all the different companies you've worked at, what are some of the most common mistakes people make as it relates to networking?
Well, they get comfortable and they stop. And that is just the worst thing to do because you never know what the future holds. So if you continually reach out to your network and cultivate that, and think of it as investing in your network. Ed, you've heard the time value of money. So I like to think of it as really the time value of relationships. The more you invest in that relationship, the more it's going to pay dividends for you down the road. And this is not about just getting something from the relationship. Oftentimes it's giving back to it. Those are the ones, if you think of your own personal circle, those relationships are the ones that you've spent the most time with over the years cultivating, and those are your most valued, your most valued connections.
I spoke to a person recently that joined a company about a year ago, and we had this very discussion that you're mentioning. And in 1 year, I said, hey, how many people have you connected with at your current firm? And the person actually said, no one. And I just kind of shook my head. I thought, wow, isn't that a golden opportunity passed by? Or delayed for some reason.
The one opportunity I told you I got from a job board, I was there at that company for 6 months. It was a software company. It was a software startup, very, very fast paced. And I knew it was not going to last forever. I didn't think it was going to be 6 months, but I did take that time and I got as much out of it as I possibly could. And to this day, I still have very active contacts based on that 6-month assignment in my job. So absolutely, when somebody gets that role, they should not stop digging and looking for opportunities to connect with people.
Since you're part of a staffing firm at Brandywine Technologies today, how does your firm use networking to help solicit clients and candidates?
So from a business development perspective, this was perfect for me because I was not a staffing person. I didn't come from the recruiting industry. I came from technology. So this has been a great opportunity for my company really to leverage what I can bring to the table. I can bring relationships to the table. So I can go back to the companies I've worked with over the last 20 years and offer our services. Now, is it always going to be a fit? Absolutely not. But it's a much more compelling, efficient, fun, exciting conversation when you're speaking with somebody that you haven't spoken with maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, and you're telling them about something new that you're doing and trying to find out if you can bring value to their current situation. And then from a recruiting perspective, the other side of the coin, we've been doing this. Brandywine Technology has been in business for 20 years. So we have a very, very deep, well-established pool of contacts. So when we bring in a new order, I'll sit down with the recruiter and we start brainstorming, and almost every time his eyes light up, he's like, wait, I know somebody. So the value of that is we go back to our network. We don't go out to the job boards. We don't go to we could, and that's another tool that we can use as industry professionals, but we always go to our network first.
Beautiful. What are some of the local events or meetups that jump out in the IT space? I come across a lot of people in IT, and they're always asking me, is there 3 or 4 places I should be going?
So there are. I'm going to take this opportunity to plug Technology Forum of Delaware, which is a really active group, and we're in the middle of retooling. I'm blessed, really. I was fortunate to be asked to join the board, and I'm excited about it because it's an opportunity really to not just look at my company, but look at the industry as a whole. And it's not just Delaware. It's called Technology Forum of Delaware, but it's really the region. So we do pull people in from Philadelphia. And what we're looking to do is really it's the rising tide. We want all companies in technology to come in, talk about what they're doing, and look for ways to really interact and help each other. As far as meetups go, there are data science is a very, very big field today. Anything that involves database development, any type of architecture, engineering, as far as from a technical perspective, these are all fields that are ripe where people are looking for like-minded people to connect with. So the meetups, I would suggest just going out to meetup.com, put in Philadelphia, put in Delaware, see what's available to you. They're always changing. Sometimes you'll have 4 people show up. Sometimes you'll have 40 people show up. Great.
How should a person network themselves into Brandywine Technology? Many times a staffing company will put on their webpage, submit your resume, and then kind of wait. What do you suggest?
There's nothing worse than throwing something into a black hole and waiting. I've been there, and it's a very depressing place to be. So our tagline, it is more than a tagline. We take it personally. So what that really means is what we want to do is interact with both our corporate customers as well as our candidates on a more personal level. We want to get to know each of them. So I would encourage, absolutely, if there's someone listening that is looking for a career in IT or maybe a new opportunity within IT, then connect with us on LinkedIn or Facebook. Connect with me. Again, it's Greg Plum. If you just go into Google and go into LinkedIn and put in my name, it'll pop up. It's Plum. It's as simple as you can be. Or send me an email, and we'll go through the contact at the end of this. So would love to connect with people on a more personal level.
You mentioned you're a LinkedIn junkie of sorts. Can you talk a little bit more about how people should be using LinkedIn to engage you or this field of IT technology?
So people should be using LinkedIn daily, every single day. It's how I start my day. It's how I usually go in the middle of my day, and pretty much at the end of the evening, I take a look. I use it for messaging. There are some of my contacts, that's the only way I communicate with. I don't have their phone number. I don't have their email. It doesn't matter. We use LinkedIn as that. I know that's how they prefer to communicate, so that's how I communicate with that person.
LinkedIn has a flag. I understand that if you're interested in a career change, it's an on or off flag.
Yes. So you want to really make yourself, quote unquote, available for recruiters. So if they go out to their profile page and then click on your dashboard and then click on the career interests section, there's a little toggle switch. Toggle that on, and then you'll walk you through a series of questions. It'll ask you just different things about what you're looking for, and answer those questions and sit back and wait. You will get some things, but I never suggest sitting around and taking the passive approach. Always take the active approach, but definitely a good opportunity to turn that on so recruiters know that you're available. But then there's the whole search capability. That's what I find most powerful. For example, Ed, if I'm going to LA for a conference, I know I'm going to have, a dinner free or a lunchtime free. I could squander that time, or I can go back to my network, find out who's in LA, and reach out to them. And I've done that often. The last time I was in San Francisco, I had some downtime and connected with somebody and met for coffee, and it turned into a few follow-up conversations from a business perspective. So absolutely, use that tool.
Well, it sounds like that's networking on the road.
Absolutely.
Well, that's great. Let's shift a little bit specifically into IT staffing. What's the market like today when it comes to IT staffing? Easy to find, hard to find candidates? Give us a perspective on what's happening.
It's incredibly tight.
Tight.
I mean, in this market, in the Philadelphia region, in IT, we're looking at an unemployment rate of less than 1%. So that sounds good from a economic standpoint. But if you're a manager looking to hire a resource, it's to put you in a really difficult spot. So for us, that adds value. That's where we bring value to a company. If they need to find somebody, they need to find, let's say it's a database developer or a quality tester. It's very difficult if that's a part of their job. If they're going out doing their job day in, day out, and then they have to go and pull away from that and go try to find an additional resource. What we do is we meet with them on the front end, find out exactly what they need. We get to know them, find out specifically what's going to fit, not just from a skill set, but also a soft skill. What are they looking for? What type of personality are they looking for? So we know that there's going to be, or there's a very good chance of them fitting well into the organization. I mean, that's what a specialist does. And that's exactly how we position ourselves and why we've been successful in the industry.
I'm wondering, have you seen a change by employers in softening their stance? I've seen over the last 10 years, 5 years, even 3 years ago, employers taking this stand of, hey, they have to make 10 out of the 10 in terms of the requirements, or I'm not interested in talking to them. Has that stand softened as a result of this tight market?
It has, more so with the smaller companies. Smaller companies are more focused on fit, trying to find the right fit. And if you think about it, it's because the smaller companies are going to have the resources wearing multiple hats. They're going to be doing various tasks. So they're going to need somebody who easily can flip between different responsibilities and different tasks on a day-to-day basis. Versus a larger company, typically you have a much more narrow band of responsibility, much more narrow skill set that's required, and they may not need to shift between jobs, tasks, and responsibilities. Larger companies also, I've spent some of my career in larger companies, and they haven't really shifted too much. They almost have a bit of a mentality, not all of them, mind you, but they almost have a mentality like, the candidate should be blessed, should feel lucky to have an opportunity to work for us. Well, in this day and age, that's no longer the case. These candidates have multiple opportunities, and what's happening, the biggest challenge we find for both companies, large and small, is time to get to actually bring that resource in. They have a very, very limited shelf life. So in the past, if a company's going to take 4 or 5 weeks to hire somebody, that might be fine. It's no longer fine. If they're looking for somebody to have a specific skill set, a particular personality, and we find that for them, they must act quickly, because that resource, if they're a strong candidate, a strong resource, chances are there's other people like my company, other firms, talking to them and getting them, trying to place them with their customers, or they're talking to other enterprise customers. So you could lose them. So once you find the right one, you have to act quickly.
How many of your employers, I've actually covered this on previous programs, how many of your employers ask to do some type of personality assessment before they hire? Can you give us a feel for that?
Yeah, not many. There are different types of assessments that are asked. Sometimes there's a drug screening, a background screening. Sometimes it could be a physical screening. There are some that do have personality tests to find out if it's a good fit. But it's not the majority of what we're finding. But I could see that certainly changing, because it's becoming more and more pertinent to be able to identify that person's strengths and lesser strengths and how they would fit in with the organization and the team that's already on hand.
Gotcha. When we think about IT today, what are some of the hottest jobs that are out there right now that people need to be aware of, especially if they're doing those jobs?
Well, the hybrid roles, I mentioned, this, especially with smaller companies where they're being looked to perform multiple different types of tasks. So it might be a role where the candidate is expected to have expertise with servers as well as network experience. Whereas in the past, they may have been one or the other. So now what we're finding is those that are being called to do multiple tasks are definitely more marketable. Cybersecurity. No shock there, right? It's a massive, massive field. And there are all kinds of industry stats out there on how rare and of a commodity cybersecurity talent is. And there's some studies that have shown there are 2 jobs for every individual in cybersecurity.
Wow.
And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that it's needed, but it is. And then anything data-driven, data is king. Everything is about, artificial intelligence and predictive analytics. So anything that database managers, data analysts, these are very, very hot roles today. And these resources, they know it, and they definitely can command a premium.
One of the things that I'm a big fan of is that when people are applying for jobs, they hit the minimums. And Do you see a lot of candidates applying where they don't even come close to hitting the minimums?
As far as requirements?
Yeah, in terms of the job requirements themselves.
So sometimes it depends on the client. Some of them are extremely specific. So we know that they're not going to necessarily hit all of those. And that's okay. We set that expectation ahead of time. What we're really finding today is I hear this time and again. And you know what really, something that's pretty interesting I'm hearing, and candidates should like to hear this, it's not as much about the dollar. I mean, budget's always a factor, but it's more about I hear this all the time and again, for the right candidate, ... right? For the right candidate, we can raise the budget for this role, or for the right candidate, we can relax that particular requirement. So that's definitely something to, now the question is, that's the trick. What exactly is the right candidate?
Gotcha. How do people find jobs on your website? Or, how would somebody know that, there's an architectural role that you have, or how would that work?
Yeah, so we don't post everything on our site for a couple of reasons. Number one, they change so frequently. And then in addition to that, you get people that are not necessarily qualified that are combing through the websites. What we'd rather do is really, as I mentioned, we'd much rather connect personally with both our corporate clients as well as our candidates. So what I would encourage anyone listening, if they're in this at that point where they want to make a change, reach out to us and we can, look and see what we have available. And even if we don't have something available today, that doesn't mean that's not going to change, because I guarantee it will, maybe by the end of the week. So it's that dynamic of a space.
I'm curious, are your clients in the Delaware Valley area primarily, or are you around the country, around the region?
That's a great question. We do have clients, corporate clients around the country, but it's limited. Most of what we have is in, say, 100-mile radius of Wilmington, Delaware. So Philadelphia for sure, New Jersey. We work with some of the casinos in Atlantic City, which are great clients. But the vast majority, we're most effective in our footprint, and it's simply because we like to take that very, very personal approach. We want to walk in a candidate to the client. We want to meet the customer ahead of time and take a look around and find out what their environment's like. That makes us much more effective at actually demonstrating that position and quote unquote selling that position to the potential candidates.
So it's probably one of the things that you believe differentiates Brandywine then.
The personal, absolutely. Walking them in, driving 2 hours to walk somebody in for 5 minutes and turn around driving back 2 hours. Absolutely. It is probably the least efficient way to conduct business, but it is certainly, in my opinion, the most effective. And then in addition to that, as far as, to differentiate, we like to take the sales guy out of the equation. Once we identify the opportunity, what we'll do is we'll put the recruiter directly in touch with the hiring manager. It's much more efficient. Things are not lost in translation, and we're able to find the qualified talent in a much quicker fashion, get that person in that seat and being productive as soon as possible. And then finally, we are not like other staffing firms in that we were a technical company. We were an outsourced IT company for 10 years. So that's also, somebody might know it as an MSP, a managed services provider, for 10 years. So we know technology. We don't just staff it. However, we've since decided to take that business and we've really distanced ourselves. Well, we've sold that off. That went another direction. So we're focused 100% on IT. As a result, those companies that we used to compete with are now some of our best clients because we know the type of talent that they're looking for.
Great, Greg. If someone wanted to reach you or Brandywine Technology, what's the best way to do that?
So by phone, we could be reached 302-656-6100. Our website is very simple, brandywinetechnology.com. And again, you can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. What else? How else can they? Any of the online methods. And then for me as well, if you go out to LinkedIn and search Greg Plum, I would love to connect with you. Ask away too. If you have questions, ask away. And then my email is gplum, GPLUM @brandywinetechnology.com.
Great, Greg. Thanks so much for coming in this morning, and love to have you back.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
Hey, so we're just about out of time. Please join us again at our next Optimize Your Career program on Saturday, August 17th. We'll be talking about firms that offer flex jobs that allow you to work from home, both big, medium, and small firms. It's amazing how much that market has grown in the last 10 years. This is Ed Samuel, Career Coach with Sam Nova. Our website is www.samnovainc.com. If you'd like to reach us by phone, it's 610-274-8214. Make it a great weekend. So long for now, and God bless.